Welcome to Roll for Geekiness. I am Jonathan of Tiger Fire Studio.
And I'm Amanda, also known as Villainous by Night.
Brilliant. And we just got back from flagcon. Flagcon is an acronym. It stands for Finger Lakes Area Game Convention. And let you describe it.
So FlagCon is a local to our area con that I think this was their second year putting on this convention, and I'd say the attendance was probably around a few hundred people over the course of the weekend, but it was a Friday, Saturday, Sunday affair, and there was all sorts of gaming happening at this convention. So there was board games, there was role-playing, there were miniatures games. Had a pretty good game library going if you just wanted to do free play. What else am I missing that was happening?
Yeah, that was the majority of the event. There were also Magic the Gathering events and a tournament or two too, if I remember right. And some Flesh and Blood. I don't know if there are any other collectible card games.
Yeah.
But I know there was a little bit of Flesh and Blood. I know there was a little bit of Magic the Gathering. That was the bulk of the event. Yeah.
So overall, I would say that my experience was a really good one. The general vibe of the convention, and obviously this might be due in part to the fact that it is a smaller convention, was cozy, warm, inclusive, inviting, and having been to a few gaming conventions now, I'll say that the atmosphere felt really laid back relative to some other experiences. So everything I did this time around was a new experience for me in terms of role-playing or board games, and the people who were in charge of leading those events were knowledgeable about what they were doing and were on top of the rules, and yet there was no tension or pressure around us needing to follow the rules exactly or needing to know exactly what was going on. I really appreciated that environment. It felt very comfortable for me.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It definitely, like you said, it felt like a bit more of a laid back, a bunch of people sitting around, maybe just sitting around the local game store playing some games. And that was really, I mean, to that point, the people involved with organizing this event organize the weekly game nights that go on in the area as well. So I think they just kind of extended that vibe into the con. Not to say that everything was totally laid back. There were a couple of board game tournaments throughout the weekend, so I'm sure if your vibe is something a little more serious, you might have been able to find it there. I don't know. We didn't do any of those because they did require a commitment of the entire event.
Right.
Not the entire event, but like multi-day
events across.
Multi-day, and the different rounds of the tournament were over different days. So you did kind of have to set aside time for the whole thing. And I think we all just kind of went, we'd like to sample a bunch of different things. So we didn't try those, but overall though, like you said, the event was pretty smoothly run. There were a few little snafus maybe with the way the space was set up that we experienced in terms of some traffic flow issues or the main gaming space. Like the tables were pretty close together, but I did see the event staff taking note of those things as they were happening. And while they weren't able to adjust the number of tables in the game hall during the event, I know they took notes on adjusting these things for next year. To also be fair, I think this may have been one of the first events held in the new venue that they were using. This was a convention center that was really just recently finished within, I don't know, the past 6 months or so. So I don't know how many events have been run in that space yet. So I'm sure they may have been helping the venue sort of figure out what their capacity is for being able to set up tables or chairs in some of those spaces. So I know the event staff took note of those things though. So I'm almost positive they'll address them for next year. I know they were looking at expanding into more of the event space as well to spread things out a little bit and deal with some of those congestion issues. I really think that was kind of one of the only snafus, so to say, that we really saw. The staff was really on top of things, very responsive. Um, yeah, just very outgoing, making sure everyone was having a good time. Um,
Yeah, the only other thing I would say that stands out as not a huge issue, but something perhaps to be more mindful of in the future is the use of the actual flags that they had for marking what was going on at each table. So they made a wonderful system of flag colors that you could choose whichever color flag represented your table being full or open to players or just an open gaming table that you could claim.
yeah,
Yes, I think there were four different. The
Yeah,
two in
there
the middle
was-
were either we're good, we have enough people, but we could take one, right, or more players, I think.
yeah, it was looking to start a game. We have enough players, but there's still some space. We're full, and then this table is empty
Yeah.
and ready to be used for the next game. And the flags to do that for FlagCon was I mean, obviously a funny little joke, but it was also a really good system.
No, it was a great idea. I
yeah.
think it perhaps wasn't used to its full extent by game runners as it could have been. I think part of the issue with that was the flags were grouped on a separate table off to the side. And so if you wanted to mark your table, you had to get up, go over, get the right color flag, come back, and then you would obviously have to change things out when you were done. I think that probably deterred some people from bothering to put the flags up. And from my perspective, that would have been really helpful too for games that people had signed up for, but then people did not show up for those games. So I had a couple of games where we did have space for one or maybe even two or three more people. And it would have been nice to be able to signal that to the rest of the people at the convention,
Yeah.
because we might have had some more people who would have joined in.
Yeah, and to clarify that too, so a lot of the events that were set up ahead of time, obviously there's plenty of open gaming going on too,
Yes.
but the events that were set up ahead of time, you got your tickets for, the tickets were all free, but you registered for them through tabletop.events, which is a system used by a lot of gaming cons. I think we've been to a few now that have used it. So, yeah, but if somebody is registered for it and the game is full, and then they don't show up, then obviously there's spaces that somebody else could fill, and there wasn't really a way to police that in terms of, oh, this person hasn't shown up and now there's some space. So the flags would have been useful for that. But yeah, I think especially as crowded as some of the tables were trying to get out to even go grab those flags from where they were at off on the side, probably would have been difficult. But yeah, no, it's a good point as well. Yeah. Let's see, in terms of other things that were happening, like we said, there were plenty of gaming events. There was there was a vendor hall, as you find at most of these places. We had a couple local-ish game stores had tables there, as well as some other gaming related things. There was like at least one local game company in there that was doing a demo of their game. There was another table there. It was a lot of 3D printed terrain and stuff like that you could use for wargaming or for miniatures gaming or D&D or whatever. And then some artists and stuff like that were in there too. It was a pretty good spread. I mean, it wasn't huge given the space, but it was also a relatively small event, so it felt like it was scaled appropriately.
Yeah.
And I think there were a couple. I'm trying to think. There were a few other special events. I know this year was their first annual cosplay competition.
In which you participated.
I did participate, and that was fine. The participation was not huge. I think they ran into the fact that this was the same weekend as another relatively local Comic-Con in the general area, so I think more cosplayers were probably off at that than were at a local gaming convention. But yeah, it was a great idea, and I think most people showed up with something that was gaming related, which was not specified by the contest rules, but perhaps implied because we were at a gaming convention. So most everyone came with a gaming related costume, and that was it was fun. It was what it was, and I know the organizers went away with some lessons learned for next year as well. There was
And there was food.
There was food on site provided by the convention center. It was a little better than some other con food we've had, but also it was con food. To that point, the convention center is right next to the Ithaca Commons, where there's, I don't know, probably at least a dozen other restaurants within a block or so walking distance. So you could probably go find whatever food you wanted if you were willing to walk off site.
That's true, and I'm just grateful they provided food. This was a relatively small event, and at least there were a few options.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, your point stands that it was con food. It was fine for what it was.
Yeah, like I said, it was. We've had worse. I don't know that we've had better. I don't know that it would still be con food if it was better.
That's fair.
Anyway, parking was relatively convenient to the site. The parking garage was literally right next to the convention center, and parking on the weekends is free.
Yes. Very easy to get in and out.
Yeah. So if you were coming for the weekend, if you were coming from out of town, you're also right there in downtown. There were, how many hotels are down there? At least 2 within a block or so of the convention center. So yeah, there were definitely some people that had come as far away as Philadelphia or. It was maybe not less surprising to see people that were from the Albany area or from the Buffalo area, which was obviously a few hours drive, but it's still in upstate New York. But yeah, Philly was a little bit further afield. We ran into a few people who had come from there. So yeah, obviously there's accommodations in the area. What else?
I think that about covers it. Overall, I would say that I'd give this event a solid 7 or 8 out of 10. I had a really solid, good experience. No huge complaints, just things, as we already mentioned, that might be tweaks for making things feel a little bit more accessible and clockable or noticeable in terms of the flags.
Yeah.
But outside of that, this was a really, really fun con, and I would go again.
Oh yeah, totally would go again. I rolled an 8 on my D10 for this event. Yeah, like you said, very solidly organized. The event runners definitely were paying attention and keeping notes for how to continue to improve the event. So I'm excited to see how they continue to build it and shape it over the years to come. And on that note, it's time to end our video by rolling the die as we usually do. A 2.
What's 2?
2 is dice. Don't leave home without them. Yeah. Sure. Till next time.